We are coming up to February the 6th, which was the date 72 years ago when Queen Elizabeth II learnt that her father, George VI, had died. He wasn't the only monarch who died on February the 6th. Charles II died on that day in 1685. And John Evelyn, the diarist, made much of the fact that he'd been in court the previous week and he'd seen the king dandling with his mistresses. The gambling tables were there. All the gold guineas were in front of them. And everything looked wonderful. And then, as he said, a week later, all was dust. He liked the story so much that in his diaries he repeated it twice. But you get the point. You get the point. Anyway, let's get back to Queen Elizabeth II of happy memory as far as I'm concerned. She was always there my whole lifetime, representing the state, its institutions, and ultimately all of us. Her work ethic was extraordinary. Even the day before she died, she was signing off the ministers in Mrs. Truss's ill-fated government. If you're not British, it's difficult to understand quite the place she had in our national consciousness. She was always there, the nation's reassuring granny, even saying that we could get over COVID, as indeed she managed to do. Yes, she was a constitutional monarch, but every government and opposition were hers. We paid our taxes to Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs. Criminals were detained at Her Majesty's pleasure. Her head, being gradually modified as she aged, graced every stamp, coin, and banknote. On a human level, she was what we would call a countrywoman. She loved and had a special bond with animals, and particularly horses and dogs. In private, apparently, she had a good sense of humour and was even a good mimic. You can see that in the James Bond movie spoof, where she played herself with a corgi scampering around prior to the opening of the London Olympics in 2012. I admit that I'm something of a royal fanatic. How could I be anything else, having played for the Exeter Cavaliers cricket team? A pox on all those Roundheads and Republicans. Her lying in state in Westminster Hall, built by William II Rufus because he was a redhead in the 1090s, was followed by her funeral in Westminster Abbey, where she was crowned and where there are so many medieval royal tombs. Her Christian faith was sincerely held, and it underpinned each of her Christmas Day broadcasts. Each Sunday in the Church of England, we prayed for her health and the good governance of her ministers. At least the former was answered. She lived to 96. Nobody does ceremony like the British. Her funeral was a model of decorum, the ratings pulling the immensely heavy gun carriage and lead-lined coffin for miles. The flowers thrown by the public onto the hearse, her horse waiting as she passed by for the very last time. It was all quite choking. The final ceremony was in St. George's Chapel, Windsor, and was even more significant. The regalia was removed. The comptroller of our household broke his staff of office. It truly was all over. Naked we come into this world, and empty and naked we leave it. My late father used to say that you have to play the hand that you're dealt. His own hand was pretty poor, but he played it as well as he could. By chance and an abdication, the Queen was destined to become a global figure. As a princess, she was even mentioned in the Diary of Anne Frank. And as a queen, every day she was scrutinized and criticized, but ultimately she played her strong hand to perfection. Resquiat in pace. And we now think of her son, King Charles III, and pray that he will be able to get over the cancer diagnosis that he has got.